Good. We've got a couple of minutes before Christine and Jimmy are going to come and get up onto the stage. Just wanted to know, wanted to let you know that if you are not following us on our YouTube channel, which is Adapt Your Life, please do so. We would love the support. We would love the likes. We put out a lot of content every single week. We invite doctors, various doctors, to come onto our channel and talk to our audience. So please, if you don't already follow us, we would love you to follow us. It would mean the world to us and allow us to do what we do, which is getting the word out there to as many people as possible. So Jimmy Moore catapulted onto the health scene in 2004 with a phenomenal 180-pound weight loss, which enabled him to come off of prescription drugs for high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and respiratory problems. He is the energetic personality behind the popular blog Livin' La Vida Low Carb. Does everybody know Jimmy Moore? And he's also the host of the longest running and one of the top ranked iTunes health podcasts called the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show. He has dedicated his life to helping people get the best information possible about healthy living and is also the international best-selling author of The Keto Cure, The Complete Guide to Fasting, The Ketogenic Cookbook, Keto Clarity, and Cholesterol Clarity, as well as his latest release, Real Food Keto, with his beautiful wife and nutritional therapy practitioner, Christine Moore. Please give it up for Jimmy and Christine Moore. If you wouldn't mind waiting just a minute for them, they're going to be up any second now. Oh, here they are, right here.
How's that for quick?
You gotta wait 2 minutes. Oh, you gotta wait.
Hey, I can entertain the crowd for 2 minutes. What's going on, you guys? Welcome, Atlanta! I always wanted to do that let's get ready to rumble, guys. Have a little voice envy. So who listens to the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show? Awesome. The rest of you have 1,500 episodes to get caught up on. So I have been knowing that a little while. In fact, Dr. Westman, I think you were like episode 40-something. You were one of the first people I ever interviewed. And I've got a quick story before we go on camera. Quick story about Dr. Westman. So after I started Livin' La Vida Low Carb, it's just one. It's the good one. I'll save the other one for later to blackmail you. After losing the weight and starting Livin' La Vida Low Carb, I was invited to one of these obesity conferences, and they had one in Brooklyn, New York. And of course, I had just lost the weight. I didn't know a lick about any of this science stuff. And so I'm sitting in here, metabolic pathway, and I'm going, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And I remember sitting down, and they were talking about some complex metabolic pathway, this PEP-C, and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing I know, this guy leans over into my ear, and he says, shouldn't that be a diet, Pep-C? 5 years later, we write 2 books together, So, welcome guys, thanks for being here. So, yeah, our story is pretty interesting because I like to say in talks that I'm not an MD, PhD, RD, or NET after my name. I'm just a dude. I'm like you. Because I think people sometimes have this kind of esotericness when it comes to the knowledge that's disseminated within this community. Well, you have to have credentials, which, don't get me wrong, if you have credentials, by all means, use those credentials. But I'm just a dude who got passionate about this message because it changed my life. And yes, it started as a weight loss story, and it's turned into a health gain story. How many do this now for the health gains? Absolutely. And so, what we wanted to talk about here today was, all those lessons as lay people that we have learned along the way, and how I took a weight loss success and turned it into something that now people around the world read our book. Do you know Keto Clarity is translated into 16 languages now? Over 500,000 copies sold. I'm just a dude. That's not supposed to happen. But it's happening. And that's hopefully one thing that's communicated loud and clear here today is you get encouraged to use your voice, whether it's a literal voice like mine, because Christine will tell you I won't shut up unless she shuts me up, right? Or if it's you like to write, you need to be using that talent, or perhaps you're just someone who can support. Someone out at our table a while ago was like, well, I want to be involved, I just don't know what to do. Do you like to talk? No. Do you like to be on video? No. Do you like to write? No. You support the people who do. And it really does make a big difference. So earlier, I think it was Dr. Jockers was the one that brought up about, have you ever stopped and counted how many carbs you used to eat before you went low carb? Anybody want to take a wild guess that's not an Uber Jimmy Moore fan? How many carbs I used to eat a day? I'll give you a hint. I drank 16 cans of Coca-Cola a day. That never gets old here in the gas food. Anybody guess? Just yell out a number real loud. 1,000. 8,000? That would be 32,000 calories just from carbohydrate. It was 15 to 1,600. And how do you get to that? You get to that with 16 cans of Coca-Cola. That's a lot of it. But then you also get to it with whole boxes of Little Debbie snack cake. I used to do that, didn't I?
Oh yeah, you did. And we would do it watching TV.
Yeah, mindlessly. Fast food, junk food, you name it. So when I decided on January 1st, 2004, which was almost just a little over 15 years ago now, that I was going to go from that to 20 grams of total carbohydrates, how do you think I felt? Kill me now. It was pretty rough in that first day. Anybody experienced that you started this and the first day really sucked? Yeah. And that's pretty typical, and that's what happened for me. But again, we now know I was having major sugar withdrawal. And we know the same part of the brain that gets stimulated by crack cocaine and heroin and all these illicit drugs is the exact same part of the brain that that sugar stimulates as well. So you literally will detox from that. And it did suck for a few days, but then it was like the skies cleared and and everything started to feel better. Now I was still over 400 pounds. My top weight was 410 pounds. And of course, I get a lot of criticism now because I still have weight on my body, insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia, as Amy was talking about. I'm still dealing with that, still going through that. But I'm a whole lot less than 410 pounds. I'm not drinking 16 cans of Coca-Cola anymore. I eat a friggin' good diet. I do. And in fact, I so believe in real food, and we're going to talk about this here in a minute, and I definitely want you to hear from this pretty lady. We brought eggs from our backyard chickens because one of the common complaints people say is, well, I can't afford to eat healthy. If you can't afford to eat healthy, I don't think you can afford not to eat healthy. So we're going to give, if you come by our booth and you're like, you know what, I can't afford to buy good quality eggs, can I have some eggs? We're going to give you a dozen eggs. We brought 7 dozen. So if that's you, there's no shame in it, guys. Come right up to us because I get 18 to 20 a day from my chickens, so please take these eggs. But these were laid just this week, so that's our little special surprise. We also have a little stress ball avocado thing for everybody as well, so please come get that. And we have all my books as well. But mine was a weight loss success story because at the end of 2004, I did lose 180 pounds. It became what I was most famous for. The Atkins company wrote to me. I'd never had any of those crappy bars and shakes. Don't do that, by the way. That's nasty. Junk food. But that's another story for another day. So they posted my story and they were like, hey, who is this? And so I share my story and I get all these emails from around the world. This was 2004. And I was like, will you people leave me alone? And finally, a buddy of mine says, you need to start blogging. Now, blogs and podcasts and things are pretty common now. 2004? They didn't exist in the health realm. Dr. Atkins had died just a year before, so there was really nobody talking about low-carb diets, which is why I came up with the moniker, Living La Vida Low Carb. Yes, Ricky Martin was relevant then, not so much anymore. It's funny, you put in Living La Vida Loca now in a Google search, you find my stuff. Take that, Ricky Martin. So I started blogging on Living La Vida Low Carb in 2005. A year later, this guy says, if you talk half as good as you write, you need to be a podcaster. And again, what the heck is a podcast? Nobody was doing that then. But he's like, you just talk. I'm like, all right, I think I can manage that. So I started the Living La Vida Low Carb show, and the first few episodes were pretty much all just kind of me ranting about some topic. High fructose corn syrup's the devil. But then I started attending some of these conferences, like the one I was mentioning earlier, and I started interviewing people. And of course, I was so nervous. Those of you that hear my interviews now on the Living La Vida Low Carb show, it's like, you probably are like, oh man, he was always good. No, he was not. I remember that when I was talking to Eric, I was like, so Dr. Westman, I was just so nervous. I was horrible. But did I care? No. Why? I had a passion. I had a message. I would dare say I'm in a church. I had a mission from God. And I still believe that to this day. So, that's my story, but how'd this little lady come into the story? Because you look at her, she's pretty darn good looking, right? She's pretty skinny, right? Watch it. She's pretty skinny now, right? She's never had a weight problem in her life. All of her health must be incredibly in order, but your thinness didn't mean you were healthy, did it?
No, it didn't. I'll just start back from the very beginning. I was born 3 months early. I weighed 2.5 pounds when I was born, and that comes with challenges. Growing up, we didn't have the best diet, and my parents didn't know. They were just doing what they were told. So, starting at age 11, I started experiencing back pain and joint pain. I had eye issues from birth, just because that's what happened. I'm blind in my left eye, and then bad vision in my right eye due to the condition. In my early teens, started having my period monthly cycle, and started showing symptoms even at 16 of endometriosis, but I wasn't diagnosed with that until 32 or something like that. So it's just an abnormal growth that grows outside the uterus, and it is painful, really bad periods and that sort of thing. It causes infertility. So I dealt with those things, and then I started experiencing mood disorders. Again, not even making the connection between diet and what I was dealing with. So had to get on antidepressants. And then each year, because of my eye condition, I would see my eyesight in my good eye get worse and worse and worse every single year. New pair of glasses, a couple of pair of glasses every year. Just
$1,200 every time.
Yeah, they're expensive because of the prescription. So in 2004, Jimmy started his thing. I didn't eat low carb starting out with him just because I wasn't making the connection between diet and my weight. I was always underweight, and so people would look at me on the outside, oh, she's healthy. I was far from healthy with all these things going in on the inside.
She was 90 pounds when I met her, 95 when we got married, and you don't want to know how much I weigh.
So I watched him. I watched him do his thing, and then in 2009, I finally went to the doctor and had my panels done, and my triglycerides came back at 298, which is really high. And so I brought my lab work back home to Jimmy, and he goes, well, you know what to do about that. You've been listening to me for 4 years, or 5 years at this time. So at that point, I didn't do low carb wholeheartedly. I just cut out 3 main things: my Dr. Pepper, my Skittles, and my M&Ms. Those were my 3 things.
Those are all food groups for her.
So I cut those things out, just those 3 things. I was still eating other crap, but within 6 weeks, my triglycerides dropped from 298 to 136. Just cutting out those 3 things, and so I'm like, okay, there's something to this. It wasn't until 2011 that we had gone through IVF-ICSI in 2008 to try to get pregnant, and it didn't work. At that time, had some stuff going on that I wasn't aware of.
Endometriosis didn't help.
Yeah, the endometriosis didn't help. But we went through embryo adoption in 2011, and I ended up getting pregnant with twins. So, I mean, at that point, I started really getting serious about my diet. I mean, even to the point where Jimmy would go to the grocery store, get liver, cut it up, freeze it, and I would take it like a pill to get the nutrients in there. We knew at that point that me getting the proper nutrients was so important. We ended up losing the twins 2.5 months in. You know, God has a plan. You know, we're okay with that. It still hurts.
We got a lot of crazy keto babies out there that we now teach.
Yeah, so we firmly believe God has a plan. But at that point, I had started ketogenic diet very faithfully, and I saw things start to happen that were just amazing. The first thing that I noticed, I went to my eye doctor, my annual checkup with my eyes 4 months in. For the first time, my eyesight actually got better. It was just amazing. And so I had to get a prescription, but the other way.
We had to pay $1,200 the other way.
So anyway, that was the first thing. And the amazing thing is since then, my eyesight has stayed stable.
We haven't had to spend that money for 2 years.
It's amazing. We just got a new pair of glasses, but that was only because of the scratches.
Because she hadn't changed it in so long.
Yeah. So anyway, so my eyesight got better. I noticed my joint pain started going away. I ended up getting my vitamin D tested before I started this, and it was 9. It was just ridiculously. It was ridiculous low. So once I started getting the nutrients that my body needed, I was able to see a dramatic change in my joint pain. I still struggle on rainy days, but for the most part, that's gone. I saw an improvement in my mood. I was able to get off all of my antidepressants that I've been taking for 10 plus years. I don't take any now. Just
Paxil she took for 10 years.
I was able to do that, and so many other things that I've seen improve. And again, you would never look at me and say, okay, well, she's unhealthy. But everything that I was dealing with, you couldn't see really. So that's kind of my story, and Jimmy presented me with an opportunity to go through the nutritional therapy practitioner program in 2017, and so I'm like, okay, well, this is great, you know, but I thought I knew so much already just from listening to him run his mouth so much, but I learned so much. I mean, we studied anatomy and physiology, the way the body works. I mean, we learn about digestion and the endocrine system. We learn about the immune system. We learn about nutritional detoxification. And I know I'm not talking about drinking green shakes. I'm talking about the process, how the body rids itself of the toxins. So, but it all starts with digestion, and if that's off, everything else is going to be messed up. So going through this program, I just learned so much that we had to get it out in book form, and that was our baby, Real Food Keto.
What's interesting is 2 years ago, she would never be up on the stage, but I had that, and now I can't shut her up. No, you did great, honey. So yeah, when I got involved in the keto community very early, attending conferences with Dr. Westman and various other people, I was learning, and I'm still learning even to this day. We're kind of diving into kind of glucagon resistance being kind of the antithesis to the whole insulin resistance. So we're always learning new things. But for me, it's always been like, I'm not going to write a book just to write another book, even though I love writing books, if you hadn't noticed. But I think anytime I come to a subject, it's always going to be something interesting that hasn't been talked about in the community. And so when she's going through this nutritional therapy practitioner program, which highly, highly recommend if you're a keto person and you're like, I don't want to become a dietitian. Nope, not holding my nose on the low-fat nonsense. Maybe you get a PhD in nutrition. Maybe that's valuable. I don't know. Maybe somebody that's gone through a PhD in nutrition can tell you. Maybe you become a medical doctor, but that's an arduous task as well. What can you do as a go-between? And so that's where this nutritional therapy has come into play. It was 9 months she became a nutritional therapy practitioner. But as I'm sitting there in my house hearing this man talk about prostaglandin, IGF, and I'm going, I don't know.
Cholecystokinin.
Yeah, we don't drink, but if we had a drinking game every time, yes. So these words that she come out of her mouth, and I'm going, I've been in this space a very long time. Why don't I know about some of this information? And so it's pretty valuable. So when we went to try to put some of this information in book form, I'm like, nobody else is talking about vitamin and mineral sufficiency on a ketogenic diet. They're talking about keep carbs low, they're talking about whatever you're gonna do with protein and fat, but not really many people are talking about how do you get all the micronutrition, because it's my argument that a lot of the satiety signals that you get on keto can be enhanced so much more when you get the right vitamins and minerals into the diet as well. That's why most of us came here today in a fully fasted state. Raise your hand. How long? What's the longest somebody's been fasting? Go. 6 days? Where's that? I love you. Oh, because of me. Oh, it's on my fault. I did write a book about fasting with Dr. Fung, which I think I have one copy left out there. So run and get it real quick. Yeah, 6 days. Wow, good. So most of us that are intermittent fasting are somewhere around 16, 17 hours in, right? 18 maybe.
I'm at 30.
So, what'd you say, 30?
I'm at 30 right now.
Nice.
Well, I was when I ate.
So the body can get really calm when you're giving it the sufficiency. So that's kind of one thing that I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about within the keto space is what role these micronutrients play. So let's talk about some of the other things that the reason we wrote Real Food Keto is we wanted people to understand that these things just aren't talked about. I think that the stomach acid one is so fascinating. It's going to hit about 90% of you in the room.
So one thing that I've learned going through the program is that actually if you have heartburn and acid reflux, it's probably not because of too much stomach acid, it's probably because you're not producing enough stomach acid. So what happens is that, and I saw this with my dad, and it just aggravates me because, and I'll tell you the story in a minute, but somebody has heartburn and acid reflux, they go to the doctor, and the doctor, the first thing they do is prescribes a proton pump inhibitor, which prevents that production of stomach acid. What's happening is that you don't have enough stomach acid. The food sits in the stomach for longer periods of time, and it starts to go rancid, it starts to putrefy and ferment. The cardiac sphincter, which is the sphincter that's top part of the stomach, it allows the food to come back up. Even though you're not producing enough stomach acid, it's still too an acidic of an environment for your esophagus, and it burns the esophagus. So that's what happens. My dad has dealt with this, and your stomach acid is so important because your stomach is your first line of defense against food poisoning, bad bacteria. Like my dad, he was diagnosed with cancer in 2015, and it's a pretty rare cancer. It was a duodenal and they found it by accident. He had a pancreatic attack, and so when they went in, they found the cancer. So he started just about a month and a half ago, started having blood in his stool again, and we were really concerned that the cancer had come back. So he goes to the doctor, has an endoscopy. Turns out, and they did biopsy, there was something in the place where his cancer was before. So they did a biopsy, and it turns out that it's Helicobacter pylori, H. pylori. A person has Helicobacter pylori because they don't have enough stomach acid to kill those bad bacteria. And so that's what causes the ulcers. First thing the doctor does is they confuse blood pH with his stomach pH. They say his body is too acidic. So they prescribe a proton pump inhibitor. He's not producing enough stomach acid as it is. That's why he has H. pylori. So it's just so aggravating that doctors just don't really, they don't get it. They don't make the connection. And so my dad's blood pH, yes, is a little bit too acidic, and there are things that you can do about that. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
And he eats keto.
My dad started keto in April. He had been listening to us for a long period of time, and it's called, what does Ken Berry call it?
He used to mock us for putting butter on our steak. Now
Powdered
he
butt
puts
syndrome.
butter on his steak.
What is it? Powdered butt syndrome? As Ken Berry says, yeah. So your family, they often won't listen to you, but with my dad's health issues, I think he finally started to get it, and now he's lost about 50 pounds. He went to his doctor recently, just a couple of weeks ago. The doctor was just amazed at his weight loss, and this doctor who had been, telling him to do things a certain way, how did you do it? And this was a prime opportunity for my dad to share with his doctor, and my parents ended up giving him a couple of books, Keto Clarity and then Real Food Keto, to his doctor to read. So hopefully we're making a difference there, but that's stomach acid.
Yeah, and that's a big one, because that's 90% of you in this room. Did you know that? Who knew that you had low stomach acid habitually? Yeah, so it's not a big thing. I'd say probably about 20% of the audience raised their hands. So that's huge. Nobody was really talking about that very much. So I know gut health is kind of woo-woo. I know you're still waiting on the evidence to kind of show. That's what Dr. Westman's go-to line is. Well, show me the evidence. So if there's no evidence, you want to see the evidence. And I appreciate that as a scientist. And as a layperson, I want to see results of, okay, what's happening in people even before the science catches up. So to that end, gut health is a big one that you learned about through the NTA. So talk about some of the common gut health issues that maybe people that eat keto need to be aware of.
So your gut is where a lot of your nutrients are absorbed. And 60% of your immune system is in your gut. 90% of serotonin production happens in your gut. So it's your second brain. So if you have an unhealthy gut, you're going to probably be dealing with some of these things. And I think that was part of my problem with my mood disorders. I had a very unhealthy gut. I was eating a lot of carbohydrates, which were feeding bad bacteria and probably yeast overgrowth. And so my gut just wasn't able to do what it was supposed to do. But one thing that you really, when you do any type of diet, you want to make sure that your digestion is working right. And so first be in a sympathetic or parasympathetic state when you're eating. So that means don't do anything else. Sit down, relax, chew your food thoroughly, and that's going to be what helps you digest your food. And then you'll be producing enough stomach acid. And then
So lead us through a proper parasympathetic state, because we're all about to eat after this is over.
So you smell food, and that sends the signal from your brain to your salivary glands to produce salivary amylase and other things to digest your carbohydrates. It's the main point of digestion for your carbohydrates. You chew the food, it goes down the esophagus as bolus, what's called bolus. It enters the stomach, and this is where the stomach acid starts digesting and mixing up these foods even more. So the stomach is the main point of digestion for your proteins. When that happens, when the pH of your stomach is correct, it finally exits through the bottom sphincter, the pyloric sphincter, goes into the duodenum. If you're having enough fat in your diet, and this is where, and I'm not talking about gorging on fat, I'm just talking, a pat of butter on your steak or a sauce on your steak, some fat sources on your vegetables. You need that dietary fat to send a signal of cholecystokinin to the gallbladder to release bile. If you don't have a gallbladder, the signal is still sent, but it's sent, the liver is what produces the bile. So the process is just a little bit different process. So you have the cholecystokinin, and then you have what's called secretin, which stimulates the pancreas to release pancreatic juices and sodium bicarbonates. The bicarbonate changes the acidity of the mixture of your food so it can enter the rest of the intestinal tract, so it's not too acidic. There, in the intestines, the nutrients are absorbed and sent into the bloodstream, and you have certain nutrients, if you have a healthy gut, that are made. You have B1, B12, K2 is made in the intestines. And so once it enters into the large intestines, this is where any lost nutrients are recycled, water is recycled, and this is where toxins in the form of feces are eliminated from the body. So that's kind of just a real quick primer on how the digestive system is supposed to work. And so any number of things can go wrong. If you're starting out in a sympathetic state, if you're stressed, you're not going to be getting the signals from your brain to your salivary glands to do what they're supposed to do. You're not going to be producing the stomach acid. If you're not digesting your foods properly, they're going to enter into the intestinal area, cause irritation, and cause increased permeability. We all have a certain amount of permeability in the intestines, but this allows for bigger holes to be in the intestines, and foreign food particles can get into the rest of the body. And this leads to leaky gut. Leaky gut leads to autoimmune conditions. So as you can see, having proper digestion is very important.
And we're ending this talk right before we go eat with feces. So, sorry. We're going to end on a happier note, actually. So that gives you a little sneak peek of why all of these kind of concepts beyond just the macros. We like to have a lot of debates about macros, and it is what it is. But I think we need to pay attention to the micro, which is where the real food comes into play. Did you want to say something else?
I was just going to say, dealing with the micronutrients, so you need B6 and zinc and other things for stomach acid production. So if you're relying too much on processed foods, that's why we've said real food keto. And again, I want to stress that if you can afford the grass-fed, if you can afford the higher quality stuff, that's great, do it. If you can't, don't sweat it. We just want you to be eating real food.
That's the goal.
And that's the goal. And your micronutrition, you need a healthy, for a healthy immune system, you need zinc, D, vitamin C. For detoxification, to get rid of toxins in your body, you need B2, B3, magnesium, and glutathione, methionine, glycine, cysteine, sulfate. So all of these...
Nanu, because most people don't know what any of that means.
These are all things that our body needs to work right. And so if we're not eating real food and relying too much on packaged things, processed foods, even if it's keto, you're still not getting the micronutrients that are so important for your body to work correctly. That's just what I want to add.
And in Real Food Keto, we have a list of like keto foods that have all of those fancy schmancy little micronutrients you were talking about, in case that went over your head like it did most of the people in the room. So thank you guys for listening. I have a couple of projects coming up that I want to tell you about. So Dr. Jockers talks about doing 60 seconds of a cold shower at the end. Dude, you got to step up your biohacking game, because I go in a bathtub of ice for half an hour because it's supposed to help mobilize some of the body fat, and I try to get my whole body underneath the water, underneath the ice. She laughs because she's like, "Can I dump some more ice in there for you, Jay?" No, I'm good. It's really kind of toasty, but it's fun. Infrared sauna is another thing that a lot of people are doing. Helps improve glucose sensitivity, insulin sensitivity. So that's something else I've added in. Various biohacks, some HIIT training. Maybe you guys, some of you saw me flipping a tire on Facebook. I'm going to get back to doing that again. All of these things, I'm collaborating with another medical doctor, Dr. John Lemansky, on a book called Keto Plus that's coming out in July. And then we're going to have a Keto Clarity cookbook that's coming out in May. That'll be a companion piece. Finally, 5 years after the book came out, they finally gave me a cookbook. And then we're going to redo Keto Clarity with some new updated information either late this year or early next year. And I'm under contract for it. I so bad want to do a book exposing the weight loss industry called Weight Loss White Lies, all the kind of ways that they have preyed on us because they want you to think it's all about that. And what it's really all about is what Amy talked about, hyperinsulinemia. And they're never talking about insulin. They don't want to talk about insulin, Amy. Their gig would be up. The calorie hypothesis would be null and void at that point. So those are just a few of the projects. You can find me at llvlc.com. That stands for Living La Vida Local Carb. We just shortened it for you. llvlc.com. And Christine?
I have a website, rebootingyournutrition.com.
And you see clients?
I do see clients. Yes, I do.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much.